Hello, 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 hello. In this video, we are going to study the attachment on the exterior of the basal part of the skull. Yes, we are going to study which are the structures are attached to the bony landmarks which we can see from the base or inferior view of the skull. We will start with the posterior border of hard palate and then we will proceed in the posterior direction. Now, which structure is present at the posterior border of hard palate? The structure is called palatine aponeurosis. Let me show you on the screen where this structure is present. The posterior border of hard palate provides attachment to palatine aponeurosis. Let me show you on the diagram and the picture itself. See here, this is the posterior border of the hard palate which provides attachment to palatine aponeurosis and the posterior to that structure. Let me show you. This is known as posterior nasal spine. Can you see? This provides attachment to musculus uvulae. This is the second structure which is related to posterior border of the hard palate. Let me show you the third structure which is related to this palate part. The structure, this is the first, second and the third. This is the tensor veli palatini muscle. What does the word veli means? Veli means veil or the curtain. Okay. So where is the insertion of this part? Veli, the word means curtain. The insertion of this tensor veli palatini is palatine aponeurosis, which is present at the posterior border, which you can see. So aponeurosis, the word, it is the fibrous part, fibrous tissue, which provides attachment to muscles. So which muscle is attached to this aponeurosis? The answer is tensor veli palatini. So where it should, if it is providing insertion, then there should be point from where it should have originated. So where from where it is originated? The answer is scaphoid fossa of and spine of sphenoid. Scaphoid fossa, where is it present? Let me show you. See, this is the tensor veli palatini muscle which is shown in yellow, and let me show you this where is the insertion. This is the spine of sphenoid. I have explained you about this spine in the previous lecture, and the second origin point is the scaphoid fossa which is present at the posterior border of a medial pterygoid plate. I know it's not clear here, but yes, it has been explained in the previous lecture. So if you have missed that, just go and watch it. See here, this is the scaphoid fossa, the triangular fossa. Okay, so these 2 points provides the origin of this muscle. Okay, now I will explain you the attachment on the inferior surface of basi occiput. What is basi occiput? Basi occiput is the part which we can see on in the inferior view of the skull or norma basalis, which is formed by the body of sphenoid and the occipital bone. Let me show you. See here, the attachment on the inferior surface of basi occiput, there is a structure known as pharyngeal tubercle. A little, what does the word tubercle means? A small projection, and it provides attachment to, gives attachment to raphe. What is raphe? See, raphe is also a structure which provides attachment to other muscles. So what are the other muscles which are attached to this raphe? Raphe provides insertion to upper fiber of superior constrictor muscle of pharynx, upper fiber of superior constrictor muscle, and superior constrictor muscle is this muscle forms the pharynx. Let me show you on the diagram. See, let me remove this structure. Can you see this? This is the fascia part. I have to remove this fascia part so that I can show you the superior pharyngeal constrictor muscle. This muscle which you can see is the superior pharyngeal constrictor muscle, and it is attached through raphe to pharyngeal tubercle. See here. Can you see this part, the tubercle part where the point is attached? Yes. Let me show you the raphe. This is the raphe. This is the tubercle, and here you have the raphe. And this is superior pharyngeal constrictor muscle, which you can see here. Now there are some more structures, some more muscles which are connected in the vicinity of this area. Let me show you. This is the point of attachment of or insertion of upper fiber of superior constrictor muscle of pharynx. And lateral to this, can you see? Lateral to this, we have another muscle known as longus capitis. This longus capitis muscle, let me remove this part so that I can explain you about this. This originates from anterior tubercle of transverse process of C3 and C6 vertebra. Yes, C3 means cervical third and C6 cervical sixth vertebra. There we have an anterior tubercle from the transverse process. We will study about vertebra in the separate lecture. We will see the different processes, but let me tell you, the transverse process is like this, and from those transverse process there is the muscles which originate from those points and get inserted to which part? The basi-occiput part. Okay, and what is the action? The action is it flexes the head. Yes, it helps in flexion of the head. Okay, fine. Then we have some more structures, some more muscles, or two muscles which is present little posterior. Let me show you here. This is the point of insertion of rectus capitis muscle. And which muscle? Anterior, rectus capitis anterior muscle. Okay. Where is the origin of this muscle? The origin of this muscle is the transverse process of atlas. What is atlas? The first cervical vertebra is the atlas, and from its transverse process, the muscle originate. Which muscle originate? The rectus capitis muscle originate and get inserted into the basi-occiput, little posterior to this muscle, superior constrictor muscle. Am I clear? Let me show you on the diagram how does that look. See, this, the action is also here, also the action is it flexes the head, and here. Okay, let me show you. Let me remove all these muscles and let me show you those three muscles. Can you see the three muscle? This is the first, second and third. So here rectus capitis, RC means rectus capitis muscle, LC means longus capitis, and SCM is superior constrictor muscle. So all the three muscles can be imagined by you clearly. Yes, see, anatomy can only be learned if you can imagine everything, and you can only imagine if you see them. So here it's the platform where you can see them and imagine them and learn them. Okay, should we proceed further? Okay, now we will see the attachment on the medial pterygoid plate. Medial pterygoid plate is the part of which bone? Sphenoid bone. It has the medial pterygoid plate and lateral pterygoid plate. First we will talk about the medial pterygoid plate, and then we will talk about lateral pterygoid plate. Okay, so here you can see it provides attachment to pharyngobasilar fascia. Can you see the green part? Fascia is also the connective tissue which will provide attachment to another muscles, another structure. Okay, pharyngobasilar fascia is attached to the processus tuberis. Now where is the processus tuberis? Can you see the green part which I have marked on the screen? That is processus tuberis, which is present on the posterior border of the medial pterygoid plate. Okay, see this part. Can you see? Yes. Now this processus tuberis, it is the triangular projection which is present at the middle of the posterior border of medial pterygoid plate. I have also explained this in the previous lecture. Go and watch it, but after completing this lecture. And here it also supports auditory tube. Where is the auditory tube? I will show you. First, let me go to the animation part. Can you see here the two auditory tube? Let me remove the unnecessary structure. Now, yes, now you can see the auditory tube which is present there. Can you see this part? Let me outline this auditory tube so that it will be clear for you. This is the auditory tube. This is the cartilaginous part of the auditory tube, which opens directly under mucous membrane of nasopharynx. Where is your nasopharynx? Inside the pharynx, the upper part of the pharynx, which is related to nasal cavity. Nasal cavity is present in anterior direction, and posterior to that in the pharynx you have nasopharynx. And nasopharynx, see how ear, the middle ear is connected to nasopharynx. Okay. So what is the function? But let me tell you, this auditory tube connects the tympanic cavity. Tympanic cavity is also known as middle ear cavity. Okay. And nasopharynx. Okay. So tympanic cavity is also called middle ear. Yes. What is the function? See, there are many functions, but let me not go in much detail. We will study or deal about that in the another lecture. Fine. See, it even protects from equalize the pressure in the middle ear. First of all, it equalizes the pressure like external pressure and the middle ear, so that the tympanum may not damage. I will explain you in next lecture or in another lecture that how it equalizes the pressure, or in physiology part. But yes, the function is to equalize the pressure. So eventually what it does, it protects. It even protects. Second function is it protects from loud sound damage. Am I clear? Am I clear? Now we will deal about the another structure which is attached to medial pterygoid plate. So we studied about the pharyngobasilar fascia, auditory tube, superior constrictor muscles. No, superior constrictor muscle we have studied about its attachment on the pharyngeal tubercle. But yes, some of the structures are also attached to medial pterygoid. Let me show you here. This is the superior constrictor muscle, and can you see the anterior part of the superior constrictor muscle is attached to the medial pterygoid plate. And the fourth structure is pterygomandibular raphe. It is attached to the hamulus, hook-like structure which is present at the tip or the inferior part of the medial pterygoid plate. Attached to the tip of the pterygoid hamulus at one end, and mandible behind the third molar. Yes, the another end is attached to the mandible behind the third molar. Okay, clear? Let me show you the attachment. This is the superior constrictor muscle, and here you can also see the pterygomandibular raphe in white. So can you see these structures? Yes. So I think everything is clear. You can see how the superior constrictor muscle is attached, how the pterygomandibular raphe is suspended from the hamulus, and I'm see the mandible part is not here, so that's why I have not shown you where it is attached. But yes, when we will deal with the mandible, we will see where this raphe is attached toward in the mandible. But yes, you have to get an idea that it is attached beyond or posterior to third molar. Okay. Now we will deal about the attachment on the lateral pterygoid plate. Where is the lateral pterygoid plate? Yes, lateral to medial pterygoid plate. So simple. Just make the anatomy simple, study with animation, and just go to dissection hall and see those structure in real. You will get a proper full idea. Okay. This is the pterygospinous process of lateral pterygoid plate. And this pterygospinous process provides the attachment to the ligament of the same name. That is, this pterygospinous process is present at the middle of the posterior border of lateral pterygoid plate and gives attachment to pterygospinous ligament, the ligament of same name. Okay. And the second, the lower head of lateral pterygoid muscle is attached to this. I will explain you this also on the lateral surface. And the deep head of medial pterygoid muscle. These three structures are attached to lateral pterygoid plate. Let me show you in the animation which are the structure, how they are attached. Please see here. This is, see here, deep head of medial pterygoid muscle is attached to this lateral pterygoid, but lateral pterygoid plate also has a medial part and the lateral part. So medial part provides attachment to deep head of medial pterygoid muscle, while deep head of medial pterygoid muscle has also a superficial head which is attached to the tuberosity of the maxilla. I will explain you now. Please see. Okay. So just note it down or take the screenshot. Then we will proceed further to the another part, that is animation parts, where you can see those structures, these structures which are present on your screen. See here. Let me remove the unnecessary structure. Can you see the pterygospinous process? Yes, this is the pterygospinous process, and to these pterygospinous process we have pterygospinous ligament. Can you see the pterygospinous ligament? See, word pterygospinous. Pterygospinous means pterygo means pterygoid plate, and spinous means something related to the spine of sphenoid. So it is present, it is the attached, or it is connecting the pterygoid plate and the spine of sphenoid. So that is why the name is written pterygospinous ligament. Okay. Now we have some of the structure. Let me show you the superior head of lateral pterygoid. This superior head of lateral pterygoid is not attached to lateral pterygoid. Okay. So we will not focus on the superior head of lateral pterygoid, but yes, we will focus on the this part. This is the lower head of lateral pterygoid muscle, which is lower head is attached to lateral pterygoid. Superior head is not attached to lateral pterygoid. We will study about that later. This lower head of lateral pterygoid muscle. Insertion is in neck of mandible. See here the mandible. Let me draw the condyle of mandible, and here is the neck part. Can you see the neck part of the mandible? Yes. To this neck part, this lower head of lateral pterygoid muscle is attached. It helps in movement, lateral movement of the mandible. Like this. Can you appreciate? Lateral movement of the mandible. Yes. Now, and even it helps in protruding of the mandible. Okay. It looks funny. Protracts the mandible. Okay. Now you have the, see, we talked about the lateral pterygoid muscle. Now we will talk about the deep. Okay. Deep head of medial pterygoid muscle. So medial pterygoid muscle has two heads. One is deep head and one is superficial head. So deep head of medial pterygoid originate from, or see here, this deep, let me show you both. Deep head of medial pterygoid. Deep head of medial pterygoid is inserted in the medial part of lateral pterygoid, while the superficial head is attached to the tuberosity, superficial head of medial pterygoid. Can you see where the tuberosity of maxilla is, and the superficial head of medial pterygoid muscle is attached to that part? Am I clear? So everything which is explained here, which is written, which is present in the note is clear to you. Am I clear? Okay, fine. Now, here we have the superior or upper head of lateral pterygoid muscle. Can you see the superior or upper head of lateral pterygoid muscle? Yes, we talk about the lower head which is attached to the lateral pterygoid. Now we will talk about the superior head of lateral pterygoid muscle, which is the origin is infratemporal. Let me write it down. Infratemporal surface of greater wing of sphenoid. Origin is infratemporal surface of the greater wing of sphenoid here, and insertion is the neck of mandible. This is also inserted to the neck of the mandible, as you can see clearly on the diagram. And what is the function? The function is simple: mandible movement. We won't go in much detail what type of movement and all. We'll read about it, we'll study about it in different lecture. Okay, so answer is mandible movement. Okay, is it clear? Now we will study the attachment of spine of sphenoid. Yes, we have the attachment about the spine or attachment of spine of sphenoid. See here, what are the structures which are attached to spine of sphenoid? The first is sphenomandibular ligament. Sphenomandibular ligament. Name itself clarifies everything. It is related to sphenoid part, and the another point is attached to the mandibular part. Second is pterygospinous ligament, pterygoid part and the spinous part, and which we discussed now, just now, and the anterior ligament of malleus. This is little confusing. This is little confusing. Where is malleus? You must have studied the 3-ear ossicles, malleus, incus, and stapes. Yes, this malleus is attached to ear ossicle, and the another end may sometimes comes out and attached to sphenoid. Okay, this ligament, the one end is attached to the neck of malleus, and the another end may come out and attach to spine of sphenoid, but it's not always. Okay, let me show you. First, we will see the sphenomandibular ligament. Can you see the sphenomandibular ligament? See, mandible is not present here, so I will just show you the sphenomandibular ligament, which is attached to spine of sphenoid, and then this extends from spine of sphenoid to lingula of mandible. Yes, a small projection is present on the medial side of the ramus of mandible, which is known as lingula. We will discuss about that structure in later lecture. Yes, but if you do not know about that structure, you can just Google it out. Fine. And what is the function of this ligament? To limit the distension of the mandible, to limit or to prevent, to limit the distension of mandible inferiorly. Okay, it won't allow excessive distension of the mandible. Am I clear? Now we will study the another ligament, that is anterior ligament of malleus. Okay, see this, let me write some of the point about the ligament of malleus. Actually, ligament of malleus are 3 ligament: anterior, lateral, and superior. Okay, but here we have to only know about the anterior ligament of malleus. These are the ligament which are attached to malleus. This anterior ligament of malleus extends from neck of malleus to the anterior wall of the tympanic cavity, and it may proceed and gets attached to the spine of sphenoid, close to the petrotympanic fissure, but sometime reach to spine of sphenoid. Sometime only it may reach to spine of sphenoid. Let me show you malleus and the ligament attached to those structures. See here, just note it down or take the screenshot, then we can move further. So here you have the ear ossicles, which you can see clearly, and can you see the structure which is present in the green attached to the neck of the malleus? This is the anterior ligament of malleus. Function is to connect malleus with the tympanic cavity. Am I clear? Am I clear? Yes. Tympanic cavity or middle ear cavity. Fine. And this ligament, let me show you, this ligament may extend, to spine of sphenoid. There, here you can see the spine of sphenoid, okay, and here you can see the ligament. So it may extend and reach spine of sphenoid sometimes, okay, not so important. Now we will study the anterior aspect of spine of sphenoid. We studied the spine of sphenoid and ligaments attached to spine of sphenoid. Now we will study the anterior aspect, that is anterior part of spine of sphenoid, which are the structures attached there. Let me show you. It gives origin to, this is the anterior aspect of spine of sphenoid. It gives origin to tensor villi palatine muscle. Yes, we studied about their insertion. This is the origin. Can you see the tensor villi palatine muscle origin? Yes. And the second is the gives origin to tensor tympani muscle. The insertion, can you see in light color? Can you see it's present in very light? Why it's very light? See, it is present inside the bone, and I faded the temporal bone in order to show you the tensor tympani muscle. You can clearly see on the screen how tensor tympani muscle is going inside the ear. Okay. Where is the insertion? Again, malleus. Can you see the tensor tympani muscle? I have made this dotted. Why dotted? Because it is present inside the bone. You cannot see it directly from the inferior view. No. See, insertion is malleus. And where is the origin? Just the anterior of spine of sphenoid. Am I clear? Yes, I think I am clear. Can you see this part? This is the inferior surface of petrous temporal bone. We will study about the petrous temporal bone now. What is petrous temporal? See, the temporal bone has different parts: squamous part, petrous part, tympanic part, okay, mastoid part. Here we are seeing the petrous part of the temporal bone, which is wedged. Petrous part is wedged between the sphenoid and the occipital bone, and the inferior surface of petrous part of temporal bone gives attachment to some of the muscles. Let me show you. Levator villi palatini, levator villi palatini muscle. What is the function of this muscle? Let me show you. And this muscle is also inserted. Origin is petrous part of the temporal bone. Where is the insertion? Again, palatine aponeurosis. Insertion is palatine aponeurosis. And the function, it elevates and retracts the soft palate. See here, it elevates and retracts the soft palate. The function of this muscle, levator. Levator means something which will elevate. Am I clear? Okay. Now we are going to talk about the margins of foramen magnum, that is the structures which are attached to the margin of foramen magnum. First is the anterior atlanto-occipital membrane, which is attached anteriorly around the foramen magnum, as you can see on the screen. On the anterior part of the foramen magnum or anterior border of foramen magnum, you can see the atlanto-occipital membrane. Then you can see the posterior atlanto-occipital membrane on the posterior border, posteriorly, okay. When you can see here the alar ligament on the roughened medial surface of each occipital condyle. You can see the occipital condyle there, and medial to both the occipital condyle on the roughened surface, you can see the triangular structure, the alar ligament is present. Can you see it clearly on the screen? Yes. Now, since we talked about these structures, and then we will see some of the important structures, which is a structure which is attached to the jugular process of the occipital bone. We are talking about occipital bone, yes. the jugular process of the occipital bone. Here you can see the jugular process. Let me show you. This is this structure. Here the conical structure, the triangular structure is the jugular process of the occipital bone. Let me mark this. Inferior surface of the jugular process of occipital bone. The muscle attached to this is the, can you see the jugular foramen? This is the jugular foramen, and here you can see this. This is known as the jugular process of the occipital bone. We have discussed about this in the previous video, this jugular process, okay, of occipital bone. And here you can see this muscle. This muscle is known as rectus capitis lateralis muscle. Can you see rectus capitis lateralis muscle? We just talked about rectus capitis anterior muscle. This is rectus capitis lateralis, and after this, in the later part of this video, we will also study the rectus capitis posterioris. Just stay tuned. See here, muscle. What is the origin of this muscle? Here you can see the transverse process of the atlas. Origin is the transverse process of the atlas. You can see, let me show you. Can you see the transverse process of atlas? Yes, which has been outlined with blue. Now, where is the insertion? Yes, insertion is the jugular process of occipital bone. Simple, very simple. Fine. Now we will study the attachment to the squamous part of the occipital bone. Yes, let me show you those structure. Let me go to, see here, the attachment to the following are attached to squamous part of the occipital bone. Now, between, let me just write it down first, and then I will show you in animation how the structures, how the muscles are attached. First is between the inferior and superior nuchal lines. So there is a space between inferior, this is the inferior nuchal line, and this is the superior nuchal line, and there is a space between them, and that space is divided into medial part and the lateral part. Medial part is towards the midline and lateral part is away from midline. Is clear? And here medially we have a muscle known as semi-spinous capitis muscle. Okay. Then laterally we can see this is the semi-spinous capitis muscle. Okay, this here that they are attached. I will show you in the animation also. And here on the lateral surface of this area we have superior oblique muscle. Which muscle? Superior oblique muscle. Laterally superior oblique muscle is placed. Am I clear? Now we have one more area which is squamous part of occipital bone, which can seen in this view, which is inferior to inferior nuchal line. Inferior to inferior nuchal line. Let me show you. This is the inferior nuchal line. So the area below the inferior nuchal line provides insertion. Let me emphasis on the word insertion. No origin, only insertion. Medially, the muscle which is inserted is rectus capitis posterior minor. Our friend, just we studied about rectus capitis lateralis, rectus capitis anterioris, and this is rectus capitis posterior. And there also we have two types, minor and major. Towards the midline we have the minor, and towards the lateral side we have major. Can you see this dark part? This laterally rectus capitis posterior major is attached. Am I clear? Yes, you can even see them on the screen in animation form. Just see. Yeah, I have to show you different muscles also which can be seen in this view. This is, can you see the superior nuchal line, inferior nuchal line? Okay. Actually, the structure which you can see is the superior nuchal line. and the highest nuchal line on this picture. Highest nuchal line is not always seen, but yes, here in this animated picture you can see the highest nuchal line also, but we don't have to look or study the highest nuchal line here because that is not seen in norma basalis. The structure which we see here in the norma basalis is the part which is attached between superior nuchal line and inferior nuchal line, and here you can see semi-splenius capitis muscle. See, this is, let me remove this trapezius. This is semi-splenius capitis muscle, and let me remove this also, side one. This is semi-splenius capitis muscle. Okay, where is the origin? C4 to C7 and T1 to T6, they are a transverse process. Superior articular process of C4 to C7. What is C4 to C7? Our cervical vertebra, and they are also anterior process. Superior anterior process, and T1 to T6 we have the transverse process. Here is the origin. See how many origin are there. Okay, then we have insertion. Insertion you can see between superior nuchal line and inferior nuchal line. What is the action of this muscle, semi-splenius capitis? Like this, extends and rotate the neck. Action is extends and rotates the neck. Okay, now we will study the superior oblique muscle which is present on lateral side. Let me remove the some of the structure, then I can show you. I have removed the splenius capitis. Now you can see here, can you see? This is superior oblique. See how obliquely it is arranged. This is superior oblique muscle. Origin is the transverse process of atlas. Please pay attention. Atlas, first cervical vertebra, and insertion is here. Okay. Now what is the action? See here. Laterally flexes and extends the head like this. Laterally flexes and extend the head. Fine. So simple. So here we have the superior oblique muscle. Let me show you some more muscle. This is rectus capitis minor muscle. Can you see the yellow part? Rectus capitis minor muscle. And then rectus capitis major muscle. This yellow. Is everything clear? Which is present inferior to inferior nuchal line. It is beyond inferior nuchal line. Clear? Fine. Now we will see the mastoid notch. Can you see the notch which is present little medial to mastoid is known as mastoid notch. And we have one muscle. Let me remove the unnecessary muscles which we don't have to study now at this moment. Let me show you this muscle. This is the muscle which has been underlined with purple color is the posterior belly of digastric muscle. I will show where it is attached, where it is inserted. From here it's the origin. The origin is the mastoid notch. The muscle name is posterior belly of digastric muscle, and insertion is the intermediate tendon of digastric. And what is the action? Depresses the mandible. It helps into depression of the mandible. So it is the posterior belly of digastric muscle. Where is the anterior belly of digastric muscle? Although we don't have to deal with anterior belly of digastric, but still we should know. Here, anterior belly of digastric. Let me underline it with, yes, this is the anterior belly of digastric. Am I clear? So here we dealt all the muscles, almost all the muscles or connective tissue, the ligaments which are attached on the norma basalis view. Hope you enjoyed the lecture. Hope you got the proper knowledge of this. You understood and all your doubts are clear. If you have any doubt, if you feel there should be some addition or there should be some change in the lecture or the video, you can write in the comment section. And if you like this video, please share with your friends. So, because sharing is caring, just share it with your friend and just like, subscribe the channel. Thank you so much.